The man at my door was holding a clipboard. He had on a polo shirt with a property management logo stitched across the chest, and he was already looking past me into the hallway like he had been there before. "I'm here about the water heater," he said. I told him I hadn't called anyone about a water heater. He checked his clipboard. "Read off the address." My address. The address of the duplex my uncle had left me 14 months ago. The one I had been living in since I moved back to take care of things after the funeral. He said he had a work order. Said it had come in 3 days ago from the property owner. I asked him who he thought the property owner was. He said my brother's name. I didn't slam the door. I didn't call my brother right then and start screaming into the phone. I thanked the man, told him there had been a mix-up, and asked him to give me a number where I could reach his office. He handed me a card. I closed the door quietly. I stood in the front hallway of my uncle's duplex, my duplex, and I looked at that card for a long time. Then I sat down at the kitchen table and I thought, my uncle had passed 16 months before that morning. He was my father's older brother, a quiet man who had spent 30 years working in commercial refrigeration and had never married, never had children, and had lived in the bottom unit of that duplex for the last decade of his life. The top unit he had always rented out. When he got sick, I was the one who drove him to appointments. I was the one who picked up his prescriptions and sat with him on Sunday afternoons and listened to him talk about his life. My brother lived 40 minutes away and visited twice in 2 years. 3 weeks before my uncle died, he called me into the living room and asked me to sit down. He had a folder on the coffee table. Inside was a deed, a warranty deed with both our names on it. He had already signed it. He told me he had worked with a real estate attorney to transfer the property to me outright, no probate, and that it had been recorded at the county recorder's office the previous Tuesday. He handed me a copy of the recorded document with the official stamp on it. He said he wanted me to have something stable. He said I had earned it. I cried. He told me to stop. I kept that folder in a fireproof box on the top shelf of my closet. After the funeral, my brother was gracious. He helped carry things. He shook hands with people. He said all the right things. When we were alone, he asked me what my uncle had left behind. I told him there wasn't much. Some furniture, a car, savings that would cover the final expenses. I did not mention the duplex. Not because I was hiding it exactly, but because I had learned over the years that my brother had a way of making things that belonged to other people start to feel like they belonged to him. I had watched him do it with our mother's jewelry after she passed. I had watched him do it with a car our father had promised me. I was careful this time. I moved into the bottom unit 3 months after the funeral. I took over the lease with the upstairs tenant, a retired school teacher named Mrs. Calloway, who paid on time every month and kept the shared porch clean. Life settled. I thought I was fine. Then the man with the clipboard showed up. I looked at the card he had given me. Greenfield Property Solutions. I set it on the table and I opened my laptop and I went to the county recorder's website. Every county in this country maintains a public record of every deed, every mortgage, every lien, every transfer recorded against a piece of real property. You can search by address or by owner name. It is public information. Anyone can look. I typed in the address. The most recent entry was not my name. There were 2 documents listed. The first was the warranty deed from my uncle to me, recorded 16 months ago, exactly as I remembered it. The second was a quitclaim deed recorded 11 months ago, 2 months after I had moved in, transferring the property from me to my brother. I had never signed a quitclaim deed. I had never signed anything. I wrote down the document number. I wrote down the recording date. I closed the laptop and I sat very still for a moment. Then I called my attorney. I had used her once before, a few years ago, for a landlord dispute, and I had kept her number. I told her what I had found. She told me to come in first thing the next morning and to bring the copy of the original deed from my uncle. I did not call my brother. That night, I drove to the county recorder's office just before it closed, and I requested a certified copy of both recorded documents. The clerk who helped me was a younger woman with reading glasses pushed up on top of her head. She pulled both files, set them side by side on the counter, and looked at them. She looked at me. She pulled them a little closer and looked at them again. She asked me if I was aware that the second document had been notarized. I said I was not aware of that because I had never appeared before a notary. She asked me if I wanted to speak with her supervisor. I said yes. The supervisor was a man who had worked in that office for over 20 years. He came out from the back and he looked at the quitclaim deed very carefully. He asked me to confirm my full legal name. I did. He pointed to the signature line. The signature there did not look like my handwriting. It was close, but not right. He pointed to the notary stamp. He wrote down the notary's commission number and told me that every commission notary in the state is registered and that I could file a complaint with the Secretary of State's office. He told me to also go to the police. He told me that what I was describing, if accurate, was deed fraud and potentially forgery, both of which were felonies. He was not alarmed. He was matter of fact. He had seen this before. I drove home with the certified copies on the passenger seat. I thought about my brother the whole way. I thought about how he had called me twice in the weeks after I moved in, asking questions about the property. Was I managing it myself? Did I have a lease with the upstairs tenant? Had I looked into getting a property manager? I had thought he was just making conversation. I told him I was handling it fine. I did not think anything of it. Now I understood. He had been building a timeline, figuring out what I knew and when. The next morning, I met with my attorney. She reviewed both documents for a long time without speaking. Then she made a phone call to a colleague who specialized in property fraud. He joined us by phone, and I walked him through everything. He explained the mechanism clearly, and I want to explain it here because it was the question I couldn't stop asking myself. How does something like this even happen? A quitclaim deed is one of the simplest legal documents in real estate. Unlike a warranty deed, which comes with guarantees about the title, a quitclaim deed just transfers whatever interest the grantor has or claims to have in a property. It requires a signature and a notarization. That's it. Most counties record documents as they come in. They are not in the business of verifying that signatures are genuine. They are clerks, not investigators. If a document looks complete and the fees are paid, it gets recorded. The fraud happens in the recording, not in the detection. Detection comes later. If it comes at all, usually when the real owner tries to sell or refinance, or when a maintenance man shows up at the door. My brother had signed my name. Someone had notarized it, either a crooked notary or someone who had been deceived or paid. The deed had been submitted and recorded. On paper, he owned my duplex. He had then hired Greenfield Property Solutions to manage the property. He had been collecting Mrs. Calloway's rent $750 a month for 11 months. $8,250 that he had collected on a property he did not own. My attorney filed an emergency motion to quiet title that same afternoon. This is a legal action that asks a court to officially declare who the rightful owner of a piece of property is and to clear any fraudulent claims from the record. She also prepared a lis pendens, a notice filed with the recorder's office that signals to anyone searching the title that there is active litigation on the property. That notice went on the record the same day. It meant my brother could not sell, refinance, or transfer the property while the lawsuit was pending. Then we went to the police. The detective who took my report was a woman who worked in the financial crimes unit. She asked thorough questions. She took the certified copies of both deeds. She took the property management contract that Greenfield had faxed to my attorney, the one my brother had signed as the property owner. She took the bank records my attorney had already begun subpoenaing. She told me these cases were prosecutable and that she had worked several of them. She did not make promises, but she was not dismissive. She told me to document everything and to make no contact with my brother. I went home. I looked at my fireproof box on the shelf. I was glad I had kept it. I want to tell you about what came next with Mrs. Calloway, because she is part of this story and she deserves to be mentioned. When I knocked on her door and explained what had happened, she sat down heavily in her armchair and pressed her hand to her chest. She had been paying rent into an account she thought belonged to the property owner. She had a receipts folder going back 11 months. Every payment documented. She gave me copies of everything without being asked. She said she was sorry this had happened to me. I told her she had done nothing wrong. I told her her lease was valid and her tenancy was not in jeopardy. She looked relieved. She also told me that a man she described my brother exactly had come by 6 months ago, claiming to be the new owner, and had told her he would be raising rent at the end of her current lease term. She had not said anything to me because she thought I had sold the property. That detail mattered. It was additional evidence that my brother had held himself out as the owner in person, not just on paper. I also contacted Greenfield Property Solutions. The manager I spoke with was cooperative once my attorney sent over the quiet title filing and explained the situation. They provided the full management agreement, all communications with my brother, and the records of every payment they had processed on his behalf. They had no idea the property had been fraudulently transferred. They had taken a client at his word and verified nothing beyond a recorded deed. They terminated the management agreement immediately. The next 2 months were not easy. There is a version of this story where I would tell you that my brother called and confessed and apologized and that we had a tearful confrontation and reached some kind of understanding. That did not happen. My brother hired an attorney of his own. His position, initially, was that there had been some kind of administrative error. Then his position shifted to claiming that my uncle had intended to transfer the property to him and that the wrong name had been put on the original deed. Then, when it became clear that we had a signed and recorded instrument with my uncle's notarized signature and his written statement of intent that my attorney had found among his papers, my brother's attorney stopped returning calls. The forgery investigation moved more slowly than the civil case, as they usually do, but it moved. The Secretary of State's office identified the notary whose stamp was on the fraudulent quitclaim deed. That notary was a woman who had done contract notary work for a title and escrow company where my brother had a professional contact. She initially denied notarizing the document. When investigators showed her the commission log, she was required by law to maintain and showed her that the log contained no entry for a transaction on the date in question. The story changed. She said she had been asked to notarize a document as a favor. She said she had been told the signature was legitimate. She said she had not asked questions. That cooperation became relevant to her own legal situation. The quiet title action was resolved first. At a hearing 3 months after my attorney filed, a judge reviewed the chain of title, the evidence of forgery, and the documentation from my uncle's estate. He ruled in my favor. The fraudulent quitclaim deed was voided. The title was declared clear and vested in my name. The court also ordered my brother to return the rental income he had collected, all $8,250, plus court costs, plus my attorney's fees. He had 60 days to pay. On the criminal side, my brother was charged with 1 count of forgery, 1 count of filing a false instrument, and 1 count of theft by deception. The theft charge related to the rent money he had collected knowing the property was not his. These are felony charges in my state. He entered into a plea agreement approximately 5 months later. He pled guilty to filing a false instrument and theft by deception. The forgery charge was reduced as part of the agreement. He received 3 years of probation, was ordered to complete community service, and the court entered a judgment against him for full restitution. He is not in prison. I know that is not the outcome everyone would want to hear, but he has a felony conviction on his record. He lost his job. His employer conducted a background check when the conviction was entered and terminated him. He lost the respect of people in our family who had always thought of him as the responsible one, the successful one, the one who had his life together. He has not spoken to me since the plea was entered. I have not tried to reach him. I want to say something about the fireproof box. My uncle was not a complicated man. He worked hard and he lived simply, and he made sure the people he loved had something solid to stand on after he was gone. He put a deed in a folder, and he had it recorded, and he handed me a copy and told me to keep it safe. That was his gift to me, not just the property, but the proof, the piece of paper with the official stamp on it. I kept it on the top shelf of my closet in a fireproof box because that is what he told me to do. He said, "Keep the original, keep it safe, know where it is." When the maintenance man knocked on my door with his clipboard, I did not yell. I did not call my brother and give him warning. I did not panic or cry or try to figure out the angles. I went to the county recorder's website. I looked up the address. I read what was there. That is how property fraud gets undone, not with confrontation, not with emotion, but with documents. Public records exist for this reason. The title to your property is a matter of public record. You can look it up. You should look it up. If something is wrong, it will be there in black and white. And once it is there, you have something to work with. Mrs. Calloway renewed her lease last month. She brought me a tin of cookies when she came down to sign it. We sat at the kitchen table, my uncle's kitchen table, which I kept because I liked the way it looked in that room, and we had coffee and she told me about her grandchildren. The duplex needs a new roof in the next year or two. I have been saving for it. The bottom unit still has my uncle's old reading chair by the window, the one he used to sit in on Sunday afternoons. I kept that too. I want to be clear about one more thing before I finish. Because some of you may be watching this and thinking about property you own, or property that has been left to you, or property you are waiting to inherit. The most important thing I can tell you is this. After any property transfer, go to the county recorder's website and look up your address. Verify that the deed in your name is the most recent recorded instrument. Set a reminder to check it once a year. Title monitoring services exist. Many are free or low cost that will alert you if any new document is recorded against your property. Use them. Deed fraud is more common than people think. It happens to rental properties, to family homes, to land that has been in a family for generations. It happens because the recording system is designed for efficiency, not for verification, and because most property owners never think to look. My brother counted on that. He counted on me not checking. He was wrong about that. He was wrong about a lot of things. The deed is in my name. The title is clear. The fireproof box is still on the top shelf of my closet.